Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live. I'm Steve Hyland, and this is edition number 49. Now, a great show lined up for you tonight, as always. Our guests this evening, yes, two guests tonight, are Mike Hampson and Adam Crawford of Bishopsgate Financial. This evening, we're going to be talking about how to understand your marketplace and really how to fast track your business. A lot of businesses, obviously, they start up. Are you the right person to be continuing your business and carrying it on? Are you the person that's going to be sticking with your business all the way through? And how should you be developing it and growing it? Who should you be talking to? What are the things you need to understand about your business? How do you grow it? How do you make it a success? As I said, it's Mike Hampson and Adam Crawford. Mike, we'll kick off with you first of all. Tell us what you do with the organisation. Tell us a little bit about your business.
Yep, so Bishopsgate Financial is a consulting business which I founded about 5 years ago now. I had, previous to that, been 22 years in the industry, starting off in technology, running IT departments back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then I moved across via a number of organisations I worked for, eventually into the business, running a payments business for ABN AMRO, which was the Dutch bank, which RBS acquired, and luckily for myself, I wasn't part of the future plans for RBS, and decided to take the opportunity to set something up for myself. And a year later, we founded Bishopsgate Financial.
And so how many years now have you been going for?
So we started, say, 5 years ago, and we've been fortunate enough to experience quite significant growth. The first year was a little bit rocky. I think most businesses struggle with the getting the first clients on board. But after about 9-10 months, we were lucky enough to win some quite major projects. And the business took off far faster than we'd planned at all. And last year we turned over 10 million in revenue. So
fantastic. So typically then, the kind of profile of the clients that you're working with are what? So
I focused the business entirely on the kind of businesses that I used to work in myself. So we focus on the financial sector, primarily on the banks. And then the course of my career was about delivering business and technology change into those organisations, you know, and I was lucky enough to work and lead some of the largest transformations in the industry at the time. And that's where we focus the company. So it's what I know, and a lot of the people who work for us are people I've worked with over the course of my 25-year career, and as a result of that, we're able to deliver, I think, a quality product to our clients, and also we really do understand what it is that our clients are going through. We understand their business because we've been on the other side of the fence.
So you really do get it?
Yeah, we're not just consultants coming in, shipping out a bench of graduates. We are a group of people who really understand the business and have lived and breathed these problems.
Do you think the old adage about the consultant is still true, where it's somebody that comes into a business and tells you what you already know?
I think there's some truth in that, and I'll tell you why that is, because I use exactly that analogy this week when we're pitching for a big piece of work for a new client potentially. Very often the answers sit within an organisation, but the challenge for individuals in those organisations is how do they actually get their voices heard. So a lot of the job is very much going in and listening to the client. Probably 80% of it is listening to the client. They understand their business, they understand their clients, they understand their problems. 20% is bringing the outside objective viewpoint of actually what are the things you can do to unlock the internal inertia, shall we say.
Adam, let's find out a little bit about you. Now, you've got a really interesting background, not that yours isn't, but I mean, it is, and fascinating, a real career change for you to a certain extent, or at least it would be perceived as a career change, because you're ex-military, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. I did my first career as a Royal Marines officer, and I did 16 years, which took me to a point where I felt I was young enough to make a change. I wanted to move into the financial services sector in some fashion. One of the things as a member of the armed services, when you leave, it can be quite hard to define what it is you want to do, because you don't really have a great understanding of the detailed sectors that you might go into. But for me, I felt somewhere in finance is where I wanted to be, and that was partly because you can transfer some of the attributes that I valued so much about my military career, working under pressure, working in teams, a very results-driven, very output-driven focus on what it is that you do. And I felt that finance would give me similarities in those senses, whilst being sufficiently different that I could genuinely, hand on heart, stand at the beginning of a second career and do something different. And that's where I find myself now.
So how long ago did you leave the military?
2 years. So
2 years.
2 years this October. So just coming to.
Do they prepare you when you are leaving for civilian life? I mean, are you put through courses, or do they look at what you've done, your previous career that you've done within the military, and then said, right, the actual ideal way or the right way forward for you is to be maybe looking at this, that, or the other? Do they give you that advice?
Yeah, I smile because yes, they do. When the armed forces, and there's a government program in place that goes to some considerable lengths to prepare you, but it is largely reliant on you to use the system. And I smile because I finished my time in the Royal Marines overseas and came home, and as I stepped off an overnight flight, I stepped into an online financial exam centre. So I'm not a very good example of that, but the armed forces more widely do go to, as I say, considerable lengths to prepare people. And there's a set of interviews to look at what you might go into. And there's the opportunity then to sit on a number of courses that can provide you with, what they effectively is hone your transferable skills. Take what you're good at and put it into context in a more commercial or civilian environment. And then there is an ongoing duty of care whereby the government will fund a certain number of courses for you for a period of time after you leave. So there's, as I said, it's a good safety net as long as one is able to take advantage of it.
Mike, do you think small businesses actually do understand that there is this wonderful resource sitting out there that is available for them to tap into?
I think it's very much underutilised. I mean, throughout the course of my career, I had the opportunity to work with a number of people who had come out of the services, and I always had a really good experience when working with them. They brought leadership skills, communication skills, discipline, and so for myself, it was a fairly obvious source to start looking at. I think a lot of small businesses are very risk averse. They go with what they know, and they assume that people who've been in the military are fairly single-threaded or single-tracked in terms of what their skills are. But actually, the military is a huge organisation with a lot of different disciplines and people in it. And probably the other thing about it is, well, there's a lot of pre-screening for people going into the services. I mean, some of the interviews that you'd go through to try and screen out the weaker candidates, that's already been done for you, particularly if you're going for the officer class.
Very interesting. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about how to fast-track your business. Because of the financial area that you come from, are we looking at predominantly the financial aspects of it, or are there general plans and general ideas and general things that we should be considering when we are trying to promote, to fast-track our business to success? You've been through it, you've done it yourself. Are we looking at lessons that you have learned to move a business forward?
I think we're going to start off by looking at that, absolutely. And we're now at an inflection point in the growth of the business. So we've had a very successful first 4 to 5 years. We're now looking at
this plateau that you hit, and it's very difficult to go up.
Exactly. How do we start to build the foundations to take us to the next level? And a lot of the work we're doing with our training program for the military is a part of that, looking to the future.
How many people, ex-military personnel, have you got now working for you or with you?
So right now we've got 7. We only started at the beginning of the year. We've had a couple of training programs coming through, which we can talk about a bit later on, and Adam as well. But we've geared up such that as the business starts to come in, we can take 5 or more every couple of months through our training program to get them out into the client sites.
And are they? I'm sorry, talking to you as if you're not there, but are they effectively part of the business, or are they freelance in their own right?
We hire them full-time into the organisation. So I think one of the differences between what we do and what some of the other organisations do when taking on military personnel is we actually offer them a full-time career and training and a commitment for 2 years. A lot of places actually offer internships, which basically come in, find your way, and if you're lucky, you'll find a job at the end of it.
Fantastic. Listen, what you were going to say? Sorry.
I think as a service leaver, that's quite an important distinction, because it's there is always some uncertainty around what it is that you're going to do when you leave the military, or indeed any of the other major security-focused public sector organisations. And what you find quite quickly is that as you leave, suddenly you lose the reassurance that you didn't quite realise was there about being part of such a large institution that, for whatever perceived faults it may have, and some people leave under those circumstances, will always look after you. So actually for Bishopsgate to invest in people up front and say there is a genuine career path here for you is an important distinction. And when you're We're talking about how to bring people into a small and growing business, and for looking into alternate talent pools, which I think is a point we'll get onto later on. There needs to be a covenant with those people, so they understand what it is that they will get from the organisation.
I suppose that must be an area that is a bit of a problem sometimes, is that comfortable feel that they're going to have, hey, you've been in the military for 16 years, you're out of it for 2, what can you bring to my business? What do you know about business? And I suppose there must be that feeling sometimes that you maybe don't have the expertise or the experience, which obviously you're working, just because it is the military, it is a different form of business.
It is, and there are a number of areas where actually your skill sets are honed from day one in the military. So we might pick on planning or communication or leadership. These are all areas. So take the first of those, planning. Of my 16 years, 5 of those years were spent in a suit in central government or in Whitehall on planning and operational jobs. So although I spent a number of years out doing what one would regard as sort of traditional military roles, dressed in green and doing things overseas, actually a lot of my time was spent being taught and then implementing what I had been taught in how to plan, how to construct a high-level plan, how to then delegate authority within that, how to lead teams to deliver against it. And suddenly, if you break what you have done in your military career down in those terms, you find that there are a whole number of transferable areas. And I don't think this is applicable only to the military. I mean, we're talking here about how small businesses look into other talent pools. And I think it's probably fair to say you could look outside your own industry as a small business looking to grow if you act on the premise that you're looking for the right person, and once you find the right person, which is difficult to do, then actually grafting the technical skills onto them that you need for your specific business area is probably a more straightforward proposition than taking someone with the right technical skills and then developing them as a good person in your team or teams, or however that may play out.
Well, what we'll do in just a moment, we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of what you as an organisation can actually offer to a small to medium scale enterprise or even a large multinational, and what your guys going in there and actually sorting. Maybe it's that leadership thing that is the most important place to be starting. We'll talk about that in just a moment. It's going to be a fascinating evening. I told you it was, didn't I? Mike and Adam are joining us tonight from Bishopsgate Financial, and we'll come back to them in just a moment or so. Last week on the programme we had a cracker as well. It was Jane Hardy joined us. She's the Managing Director of Fabulous Women. She was talking about net winning. I don't know about you, do you go along to networking events and you think to yourself, well, this is all about selling, surely? Well, as Jane said last week, it isn't about selling, because if it was all about selling at a networking event, it would be a sales meeting. And that's not what this is about. It's about net winning. It's about maybe getting to know other people, people getting to know you, and then at a later date becoming a recommendation for you. And that's what she was talking about. But she was also talking about predominantly the fact that the organisation is set up for women, fabulous women. But she also had fantastic blokes involved with it as well. Just to give you a bit of a taste of what happened in last week's programme, here's Jane Hardy on Business Connections Live. My guest this evening is Jane Hardy. She's the Managing Director of Fabulous Women. We're talking about net winning. Net winning is what we're talking about.
Well, I started off as in marketing customer service. We are predominantly female, but we do welcome marvellous men. So
it's Fabulous Women.
Predominantly. Yes.
But marvellous men as well.
If it was about a sales meeting, networking, it would be called a sales meeting. It's not. It's net winning, and together we can win together. It's all about community and helping and supporting each other. And a small business, whether they've just started out, they have to wear many hats, whether it's accounts, sales, customer service. There's a multitude of issues that they have to face. Mm-hmm. And the more experienced of us are there to help them. And affordable training, and that's what it's about. We offer social media training, marketing training, sales training, SEO, whatever anybody needs. I listen to the members all the time. They tell me what kind of training they need, whether it's helping them do their books or what have you. We run half-day courses by our members for about £25. Always remember to have a goal in mind. Always make it a very big goal. Don't try and struggle on your own. There's lots of people out there willing to help, and at an affordable price. Don't spend all weekend doing your expenses. Get a bookkeeper in at half the price that it would take, and use the people that you meet. You cannot do it all yourself. Yes, it's hard to do marketing, it's hard to find the right person to help you. Yes, it's hard to get that work-life balance. Maybe that's the issue, the work-life balance. It's been predominantly male, going out there, bringing in the money, and the woman's been at home. The woman is still predominantly responsible for the home and the shopping and the kids, and running a business as well. Time management is a big issue. I'm Jane Hardy, Managing Director of Fabulous Women and Marvellous Men, of course. If you are looking for a safe, supportive and inspirational environment in which to grow your business, you've come home. Customers, suppliers or potential collaborators are all there waiting for you. It's a testing ground for your business. It's a safe environment, yet professional networking where real business people are, and sales come naturally, along with referrals. We do business the feminine way. It's all about community, collaboration, and like I said before, relationships, which results in trust. Fabulous Women is the network that successful business owners choose to connect, share, grow, and succeed in their business. Our ethos is to bring people together, to collaborate and to support each other, and to learn and to promote you. Remember, strangers are just friends and colleagues that you haven't met yet. Thank you.
Jane Hardy, Managing Director there from Fabulous Women, and if you want to find out more, do watch the entire edition of Business Connections Live. Great to have your company with us. It is week number 49, and my guests this evening, Mike Hampson and Adam Crawford. They're from Bishopsgate Financial, and we're talking about how you should be looking at how you should be going about fast tracking your business. The thing is that these guys have been through it. Okay, you may be saying to yourself, well, how do I know that? Well, hopefully we've established that they've got the skills. Let's find out maybe a typical example of the kind of thing that they do. Maybe we'll throw that one at you. A typical example of what you come in, what you find, what you do in the process, and then what do you do to actually fast track a business? Because everybody wants success, and they don't want it tomorrow. They want it now.
Sure. So, I mean, from our business, we typically deliver change management services to the banking sector, which sounds pretty dry. But if you look at the organisation, the organisations and the industry at the moment, there's a huge amount of transformation going on. And you know, from all of the regulatory requirements that you see coming up, the massive restructuring as you know, banks, particularly the UK banks, have to divest themselves of large branch networks in order to satisfy European laws. Big upheaval within the organisations, and also the adapting to new ways of working. The regulations around conduct risk and how the industry should conduct itself when it's talking to its clients. Those aren't simple, what's the problem, go in, define the solution and just hand it to people. You've actually got to work out how to embed these changes and challenges within the organisation, and you've also got to bring the organisation along. The people within the organisation have got to come with you on that journey of change. So what we do, is there a typical engagement? There isn't any one typical engagement, but if you look around yourself in any organisation, there's these projects that are going on year, and as a result of that, they need specialist expertise to come in. They don't need it forever, they just need it for a period of time.
Is it a case then that what you're looking at is that it's very much the skills that Adam has, in as much as that it's man management, leadership, things like that are required just to drive this whole process forward?
Absolutely. A large part of what we do is relatively generic in terms of how do you manage a change process. Yes, there's a need to have industry expertise for a piece of that, but you know, very often what you need is people to come in with the leadership. And frankly, I worked in the finance industry for 20 plus years, and the level of leadership and the management disciplines isn't necessarily as high as it could be. And you know, I'm certainly learning a lot from some of the techniques that Adam and some of the other guys bring into the organisation. You're never too old to learn. Mm-hmm. and the industry can learn a lot because these guys can land and can be effective very, very quickly.
Adam, what are the typical things that you do see when you go in there? Because to do what you've done, you really had to get leadership off to a fine art, didn't you? When you go into a large multinational or even a small business and you go in there and you see what they're doing, what are the big mistakes that these organisations are doing?
I think the human condition, people need to be led. They want to understand what it is that they've been asked to do. And I think what the military equips you to do quite well is to be a leader. We talk about transferable skills. Certainly, if you're in a leadership role in the military, you would have been prepared from it from the day you join until the day you leave, and you're always learning, and some of that learning can be at a fairly substantially high level and well-resourced in sort of national terms. So coming into an organisation, you can always detect the need that people have to be managed and led. And that can be simple things like understanding the parameters in which they're being asked to operate, and then given the freedom to operate within those parameters.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that, articulating that, or putting structures in place as a manager or as a leader is not easy, and it doesn't come naturally to people who perhaps have been put into those senior positions in these organisations because, within the banking world, they're very successful traders. Some of my very best friends in my new career are very successful traders, and I would not say anything against them. But they then, by their own admission, get put in a position when they've got 50 to 100 people in a high-pressure environment to lead and manage, and it's the first time they've ever done it. I mean, that's a very invidious position to be put in some
Do you
ways.
see this being promoted to your level of incompetence actually ever cropping up?
I think it's the other way around. I think very, very competent people in their own areas are promoted out with probably their...
Then to their incompetence level, yes.
Yeah, but that's not their fault, by and large. And actually, you get the same sense, I think, in a large or a small organisation, of people's need to be managed and to understand what it is that they're required to do, perhaps why, and certainly in the larger organisations, the why can be quite difficult to define. I think if you're in a small business, the imperative behind your activity is relatively clear, particularly an organisation like ours and those, I guess, of our audience tonight. As a business gets larger and into the sort of the multinational corporates, it can become harder to ascertain what it is that you're being asked to do in terms of where it fits in the overall business direction. If you're part of a 10,000 strong multinational, what do you do today? How does that affect what happens to the business? And of course, to an extent, the answer is it won't have a huge day-to-day impact. But everybody should feel that they understand where their activities lie. And then they should understand the parameters in which they can sort of carry out or deliver that activity, and understand what success looks like, and then be sort of mentored along that road and rewarded. These are all relatively simple things, but time and time again we see them not applied. People don't understand particularly what it is that they've been asked to do. They don't understand the parameters in which they've been asked to do it, and they don't understand why they've been asked to do it. But you solve those three simple things, and they are simple quite often.
So whose fault is it then? Is it the management structure? Is it the senior management putting the message down to the troops effectively, just not doing it clearly, concisely, and really understanding what they're trying to get out of the people that are working for them?
I think the demands, certainly in large organisations, the demands on senior managers are so intense now, particularly in the sector in which we work, with the issues behind regulatory change and accountability and scrutiny, that it's just a factor of time quite often. People have the best intentions. It's a paradox as you grow and run a small business. In the early days, everything has your direct attention, but as you look to grow, you should be able to lift yourself away from that, particularly if you're senior, and move away from the day-to-day. But that's very difficult to do. You still find yourself bound up in what's happening all of the time.
Do you see resistance to what you do? For instance, when you're in the military and your background there is you are professional leaders, but then the people that you are leading are professional followers, that you are telling them to do something and they've got to do it. Whereas in business, people seem to be a little bit more free-spirited. I mean, do you come across that?
I think that's probably true, but I think it's a slightly, that's almost downplay some of the skills that these guys bring. I mean, I think within the smaller environment like ourselves, I'm probably learning faster than any of the other guys as Adam comes in and has an influence. And I think it's a challenge for anyone who founds and creates their own company, is at what point do you start to step away and let other people do things?
Now, you're in that exact situation yourself, aren't you?
Exactly.
So 5-6 years ago, you start the business.
Yep.
Your first year is tough while you're building the business up. When do you step back and let the others get on with it and enjoy your success? and or are you still looking over shoulders? Are you still actively managing?
I think you've got to decide what your vision is and how big you want to take the company. If you're quite happy with a certain level of lifestyle where you're the jack of all trades, in control of everything, in the detail of everything, then that's fine. But as we grew to the size we got to, as I say, we're close to 100 people, 10 million in revenue. If you're really going to grow, to break through and carry on growing, you've got to reevaluate how things operate. And I myself can't run around doing everything from managing the office move to doing the sales to going out delivering engagements for clients to the HR, the finance, whatever. So part of what we've been doing the last 6 months, especially since Adam's come in, is a structured process of getting me to back away from everything but the most highly valued parts of the business that I can contribute to.
They're telling you to clear off, aren't they? That's what they're doing. You're managing yourself out of the business. That's what you're doing at the moment.
Absolutely. And to be fair, we were lucky enough to make it into the Fastrack 100 last year. We were ranked number 4 in the Sunday Times list of fastest growing companies. As a result of that, you get to go to a party at Richard Branson's house.
Very nice.
In Oxford. And the one piece of advice he gave to the audience there, I was one of many hundreds, so it wasn't a personal audience, was, he said that whenever he found himself doing things repeatedly, that was the time when he had to find someone else to do it and then move on. So delegate was his number one piece of advice to people who wanted to grow their own business.
Would you agree with that? Delegation, it's all down to delegation. Is it down to delegation, or is it down to delegation and a clear message?
I think you need to understand what either you're not good at or what you shouldn't be spending your time on, and you should delegate that. You should have enough self-awareness to say there are certain facets of your behaviour that you just aren't as good as somebody else, and don't be afraid to bring people in who are more talented than you in those areas. Otherwise, yes, a lot of it does come down to delegate authority, just to let people get on with it. And I spoke earlier about, you set boundaries and say, within those, do what you think you need to do, and then we'll check when we get there. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit a moment ago about how leadership has a sort of function in that process. Your point about professional followers, I can't let that go unremarked, Steve, I'm afraid. It's when you're putting people into harm's way, they are anything but professional followers in this day and age. They will ask you some pretty incisive questions about why.
All right, I consider myself told and chastised.
Yeah, and that's really on behalf of my serving colleagues who've had the courage to stay and keep doing what I've left to. But a lot of when you see this in a commercial environment, people are equally there to be professional followers, to misuse the term again, because actually, as I said, all they want to do is to understand what it is that they need to do, and delegating has a big part to play in that.
Will you go through in just a moment some of the techniques that you impart onto the people that you talk to, the kind of things that you identify the problem or the issue, obviously, but the techniques that you impart to them that makes them a better leader? Makes them instruct the people that are around them, maybe to identify the problem as well, so that there's some clear takeaways for our viewers who are maybe in a small business or a large business that are watching this, and they're saying to themselves, well, it's all very well because anybody can do the talk, but what's the actual walk? So if we can just talk a little bit about that in just a moment, that'd be fantastic. Tell you what we'll talk about right now, coming up very shortly. Of course, we've got the business networking show that's going to be taking place very shortly up at Wolverhampton Racecourse. We're looking forward to going up there. We're going to be up there for the day. It's on Friday the 19th of September. It is the UK's largest business networking show. Really don't miss out on this one. It's going to be a fantastic event. Some great speakers are going to be there. We've got BBC's The Apprentice runner-up Neil Clough. He's going to be there. Rachel's going to be there. Brad Burton, can't wait. Great bloke. Going to be back on the show very shortly as well. The UK's number one motivational speaker, Dee Blick, who was with us a couple of weeks ago or so ago on the programme, where she was talking about how you should go about actually marketing your business, and the author to Business Networking for Dummies, Steph Thomas. He's also going to be up at the show. We're going to be broadcasting live from the show for the entire day. It's a single day show. It's well worth going up to. The largest networking show, or should it be a net winning show? I'm not certain. But the largest networking show in the UK. It's going to be thousands of people up there. As I said, we're going to be broadcasting live from the programme or from the show. And we're also going to be having a roving reporter, and we'll be talking to some of the exhibitors that are going to be taking place. It's going to be one long day, one continuous stream of consciousness that hopefully is going to be helpful to businesses like yours. As I said, we've got the book here, Business Networking for Dummies, and it is a fascinating book. If you want to find out a little bit more about how you should capitalise when it comes to actually networking, and tickets are available. We're giving some of these tickets away, by the way, to some of our sponsors who are going to be helping us out at the show this year. So if you do want to go along, once again, tickets £20, Wolverhampton Racecourse. Went up there the other day. It's a nice venue if you want to stay overnight. It's got a nice hotel on site as well. Friday the 19th of September, it is the business networking show. Whatever you do, don't miss out on that. Next week's guest, I'll be telling you a little bit about that in just a moment, but it's all about training. I'll give you a bit of a tease right now. Let's go back to our guests this evening, Mike Hampson and Adam Crawford. They've joined us this evening from Bishopsgate Financial, and it's really how to fast track your business, how to make it more successful, how to get to where you need to be. There are a lot of companies that probably fail when it comes to the point where they just don't know how to expand and how to grow their business, and maybe sometimes it's organizations like Mike and Adam's that you need to be talking to. And it isn't just the big ones, the small ones actually need the help as well, but maybe sometimes it's the big ones that need more help.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. The same symptoms appear across all sorts of organisations. And, you know, I think one of the first things we do when we go into an engagement is we focus very much on, you know, what is the information that we need to present back to the client. And I think management information is something people talk about all the time. It gets quite dry. The old adage of if you measure it, you can manage it is absolutely true. But very often you go into meetings in, particularly our larger clients, you know, the monthly standard meeting, and there'll be a PowerPoint deck of 50 slides that people will be
Death by PowerPoint.
Exactly. And it's just...
That really gets everybody motivated, doesn't it?
It's the conference call, you can hear the keypads going on the end of the phone as people are doing their emails. No one's listening. And actually there's no real message coming out either. And I think, you know, technology has been a terrible thing in some ways because it's enabled people to abdicate from what is it I'm trying to tell people. But, you know, here's a spreadsheet that's like 17 megabytes, or here's a PowerPoint deck of 105 slides. So we focus in on, you know, what are the key dashboards that we want to provide.
So these are really the true techniques, aren't they? It's don't tell them everything. Tell them the key message that you want to get across.
Absolutely flag what is the message you want to say. If something is amber, why is it amber and what's got to be done to put it right, and actually who's got to do it. You also get these, well, we're going to get approval from the so-and-so governance committee, which is like this ethereal group of people somewhere way up in the organisation. Again, it's people not abdicating responsibility but not feeling empowered. But let's boil down to, you know, where are we? What are the clear messages? You don't need to have a huge amount of information. None of us have got the time in our day to assimilate it. None of us can probably read all of our emails in detail that we get on a daily basis anyway. So cut to the point. What are the messages? What are you got to try and do? And who's got to be making what decisions in order to make it happen? So those are the kind of things we focus on.
That must be one of the key skills that you have, is actually identifying an issue, identifying the problem, and here is the solution. I can't imagine you, when you were in active service, out there with a 50-page PowerPoint with 100 different notes on each of the slides saying, here's what we're doing tomorrow, guys. I mean, you had to actually consolidate the information very quickly and to get to the crux of the matter. And is it those skills that you're now transferring into business?
Yeah, there is certainly anybody from the military brings with them an understanding of how to appreciate a problem and look at it very quickly in terms of what is it that I need to do. Why do I need to do it? Which gives you that sort of really important context, so you understand where you can stray outside of your boundaries if that's required. What do you need to do it with? What's going to stop you doing it, and how do you mitigate against those? And then in what order do you want to do it, which becomes a sequencing exercise. And actually within that, there's a lot of commercial tools that sort of have similar tenets, particularly in project and program management. But that sort of upfront looking at a problem and defining what it is you need to do, and why you need to do it, and how to do it, and what do you need, that gives you then the basis for a plan. And I think when you've been talking about large and small organisations, one of our clients at the moment is a small company that is looking to grow, and it's reached that sort of marvellous point when it's gone very well for a couple of years, and the owner and the CEO has said, I'd like to take it further. And one of the first things that we've done with him is to design a plan that is admittedly aspirational, but it takes him to where he wants his organisation to go, and it explains in very coherent steps how he might get there. Inevitably, that will not stand the test of time in the full sense of the word, and it will shift and it will change.
Well, plans have to be dynamic, don't they?
They do, but what it does do is it allows you to articulate your goals, and it's surprising how often we talk to particularly smaller companies, and the goals are either too ill-defined as to be not useful, or they don't exist at all. And people think that there's a goal because they go to work every day and work really hard. And small businesses, do run at a ferocious pace for those who are involved in them. But just by simply stepping back with this particular company and articulating where they are trying to get to and what the component steps of a plan look like, has provided a great deal of clarity for them. And that was a simple process, and I turn to my earlier refrain: what it is that you want to do, why do you want to do it, what do you need to do that, what order do you want to do it in, or should you do it in, and what are the obstacles and how do you mitigate them? And suddenly there is a plan.
I suppose this nearly goes back to the original business plan, doesn't it? A lot of people will write a business plan when they're starting their business, maybe to raise funding or whatever, but they will write a business plan, then they will get it printed nicely, they'll go out to their potential investors, put it in a safe afterwards, and never look at it again. Yet the business plan should be a dynamic animal, a dynamic thing with its own life. It's constantly upgraded, constantly looked at, constantly refined. And I suppose what you're saying here is it should nearly be like that with everything that you're doing in business. If you want to go from A to B, you've got to have a plan to do it and refine it as you're going along.
Yeah.
So what other techniques then would you suggest to businesses? So we've identified that we've got to have a living plan. What other techniques or other problems that you see businesses have?
I think and it directly falls out of having a plan is then what do you do with it and how do you implement it? It's a delight to sit and write a robust aspirational business plan, particularly if you're 2 years in and you've got some growth to build on, as per the client that I referenced earlier on. But actually implementing it can be quite difficult. So I think the next step, the next thing that needs to happen is how do you resource that plan, particularly in terms of people. You're looking at growth, so therefore by definition you will require more resource.
And will that be painful, do you think? Is there always going to be pain in this?
It can be, but a proper, well thought out plan is an invaluable tool for getting the right people into your organisation. There's a paradox, I think, with those who choose to work in a small organisation, in that they have probably at some point made a conscious decision to move away from a larger organisation. But there are lots of positives and negatives to both, but one of the things that you lose when you join somewhere small is sort of security, because you are joining something that's it's probably not a startup, but it's in the early stages of its career. And actually the plan that is produced by the business allows you then to look at talented people and explain to them the journey that you wish them to support and accompany you on. And that is a way for them mitigating the slight misgivings they may have about leaving. Perhaps you've got someone incredibly talented and experienced, but they're very comfortable in a large organisation. They're perfect for driving your growth plan. And actually, how do you entice them across? Well, one of those ways, in addition to the more prosaic and the remuneration things, is to have a look at, this is the journey I'm going to ask you to come on with me. And it's properly thought out. This is not something that we've just sort of made up or we're making up as we go along. Acknowledging, as you say, that the plan will flex and change. So having decided the plan, then how to implement it is the next big challenge. And for me, that is often about people, finding the right people, and then finding the way to attract and retain them and put them at the heart of your organisation. You can't grow without that talent, I don't think.
How do you identify the right people then? Is this the fact that what you've done, you've gone out and you've seen that the right skill base is there from people like Adam? Is that how you've done it?
I think it is a lot of luck as well. It's not just taking anybody in there. Adam, is one of several people we've been lucky enough to bring into the business that's making a big change. Mm-hmm. But I think, as he says, you've got to have a view and a vision as to where you're trying to get to. It's not then something you just stick in the drawer, as you say, but you carry on working on that, refining it, deciding where we got so far with plan A, but in order to get any further, we've got to now start to refine that plan to go to plan B and C. And there are people out there, but as I say, finding people who want to come into small companies, take the risk, pulling them out of a large corporate environment where they're quite used to regular salaries, paid holidays, maybe flexi time, maybe working from home, pension schemes, etc. like that. It's very hard for a small company to compete with that. So you've actually got to give them, hopefully a little bit more excitement. We're on a growth path here. said to all the guys I interviewed coming out of the military, I said, I have no idea whether this is going to be successful or not. You know,
well, that's exciting.
I think it's going to be okay. But, you know, I'm making it up as I go along. But I do believe that there's a source of talent. I do believe that it's the right thing for the business. And if we get it right, you know, the company will take off. And certainly with our clients, you know, the message has resonated really clearly with them. I mean, they love what we're doing.
Something you said earlier on about going to see Richard Branson, and he sort of said if you're finding that you're doing something repeatedly, then you should get somebody in to be doing that.
Yeah.
Do you find, the pair of you, that what you're doing is you're going in, and the problem that you're seeing is actually that you've got senior management who won't let go and won't empower the staff?
I think there's a control issue. Absolutely, there's a knowing when to let go and to trust people and give them enough. I won't say give them enough rope to hang themselves, but you got to let people fail. You know,
you'll have a go at you.
Exactly. Yeah. But you know, nobody. It's like with kids. They won't learn a bike if they're not going to fall off. You know, occasionally, and so you've got to give them enough leeway to say, well, go off, try this, and see where you get to, and just knowing when you can put some input into it, so you're not micromanaging or dictating how it's done, but actually just, you know, making sure it really doesn't come completely off the rails.
But I mean, that really is a very, very difficult decision for many managers, aren't they? Because they are, in inverted commas, they are managers,
Well,
and you know they're in that role, and therefore they feel they have to act the role.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I mean, how do you educate them? How do you move them on? How do you make them maybe shine a little bit? I mean, what are the techniques that you use to educate them?
I think the best starting point for that process is to sit with them and understand what it is that they're trying to achieve. And within the sort of context we're talking about, it's business growth. And quite often that requires, as we've said earlier on, sort of additional talent. But not investing in that talent, not delegating, not letting go of the day-to-day business will diminish your ability to grow your business. And actually, once you put it in those terms, for a manager who is, particularly in a small business, who is genuinely committed to growth, and you can start to say, if you don't do this, then you will hinder your own growth.
How's that sometimes received when you, because there is no easy way of saying that, is there? You actually have to say it, don't you, for them to understand?
You do, but I know you talked to Mike right at the very beginning, your opening remarks about what do external consultancies bring. Is it sort of stating to you things that you sort of technically already know? There's a little bit of that involved at this stage, I think, and I will sit with managers and explain, you know, if you don't let go and if you don't delegate, don't invest, don't bring yourself out of the day-to-day minutiae, you will unhinge your growth plan. People genuinely know that. It doesn't make it any more comfortable to do, but it's a lot easier to be told, I think, particularly by somebody external whose vested interest is purely to do a good job for you as a client. You know, I've been engaged to help you grow. I will do everything I can to assist you in that growth, and that includes telling you what I think needs to be done. It's easier to hear that message from someone external.
Do you ever get the reaction that, what do you know? I mean, are there points in the relationship that you have with an organisation where they sometimes stand back and they assess what you're doing and they say, do you know, I don't think this isn't for us? I mean, does that ever happen? Or is it a case that you've made you're measurable in what you are achieving for them, so therefore they can never say that?
Yeah, it's two things. One is we're pretty careful about which engagements we get involved in. If we don't feel we can add something to the client, then we will make sure that really is clear up front and decline to tender if that was how the process was going. To date, you know,
touch wood for Micah.
We've never had anyone say, you know, you're not adding value, and I think, you know, it is down to us to bring relevant experience, and as I say, that's selecting the right engagements that we get involved in.
Is it a case then that a business like yours, the more you do, the better you become?
I think you get more experience, right? So experience is in many ways valuable. You see many of the same situations cropping up time and time again, and so long as you don't solve every client's problem by going back to first principles and generating lots of new analysis, but actually saying, well, actually we've seen several examples like this and we can fast track to a solution. That, you know, and that's where going into different clients, seeing different examples of problems, getting involved in different projects or solutions, and making sure that you bring those back to bear in future engagements.
Which benefits the client, of course. I mean, that's at the heart of everything that we try and do. And we're also very careful as a company to institute our own audit of our own performance during each engagement, and we will have a senior person who is not directly engaged with that particular client look at it as best they can in a dispassionate and external fashion to make sure that we are delivering as best we can to the client. So we will try and guard against stepping away from our own metrics as well, and that's really important to us. Mike said we select very carefully what we do, and we're also we try and be very diligent in how we do it, of course, but we also will try and check ourselves, and that again is something that resonates with clients. It's something that I would certainly advocate to people growing a business like this.
The scale of clients that you're dealing with, big, small, indifferent, does it matter to you? Can it be a small 10, 50 person organisation up to thousands of people? I mean, does it matter to you, or is it a case that a smaller organisation will tread on the eggshells, but wouldn't be able to afford a service that you would provide, or would you scale it for them?
Well, we do, as Adam has alluded to, we are working with some smaller organisations, but typically buyers of services like ours are the larger organisations. Currently engaged with a client that has not traditionally bought consultancy before. They're probably what I would call a mid-size organisation, and what we bring that is different to the big consulting firms is obviously we're smaller. We like to think we deliver the right expertise, and we also like to believe we deliver that at the right price. So we recognise what their budgets are.
It's more of a personal service, isn't it? It isn't just one size fits all. It's something that is tiered and constructed for that business to make it work and happen.
And this particular case, it's a piece of business we'd like to do. So, someone like myself would go in and do an amount of work, at our cost, because we'll invest back into that.
Okay, listen, we'll talk a little bit more to Mike and Adam in just a moment. Absolutely fascinating. If you are a medium-sized, but if you're a large organisation, you're watching this and you maybe got a little while that you're just sitting there at the moment, you're thinking, I'll just check this out for a moment, find out a little bit about them. By now, you've probably heard that maybe your business doesn't even need it, but it would be nice for somebody to come in and actually tell you that you're getting it right as well. And I'm sure there are times when they will go into organisations and they will impart that message to them as well. If you are watching this, by the way, at the moment, thank you very much indeed. If you're watching it on YouTube, that's great. Don't forget, you can always subscribe to the programme simply by pressing the button that's just there at the moment. We'll put a bigger button there for the ones with the bad eyesight, but it will go there very shortly. Also, if you're listening to us on iTunes too, that's very good. The programs are updated on a weekly basis, and they are delivered directly to maybe your iPhone, your iPad, or your Android device, and you can actually listen to the program, both the audio, you can watch it in video as well on iTunes. So do check that out as well, for that matter. If you go to the website, we'd love you to, I know this is a lot of things where you can go to, but we'd like you to go to the website as well. Here's the website from a couple of weeks back, and this is brand new now. You can sign up today for a free business video. We're not giving a free business video away. In fact, what we're doing is we're offering you one that we can produce for you. It's a simple 2-minute piece of camera that we would put together for one of our subscribers that particular month. And as you can see here, a business video will raise your business profile and tell people what you do, will increase traffic via search engine optimization. It's great for SEO, as I've just mentioned, and it will also engage your audience as well. If you'd like to find out more about that, all you've got to do is go to our website. That is www.businessconnectionslive.com. And if you're thinking to yourself, I actually like the whole concept of this program, instead of sending out maybe a newsletter or communicating with your clients with the written word, you can make it a little bit more sexy. If you think right now that the #1 search engine on the internet is YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. So the #1 search engine is Google, the #2 search engine is YouTube. You'll never guess what Google will be showing in its results when you go searching for something. It'll be searching and finding your video content. So using video to promote, to sell your business is a great way forward. And once again, we here at Business Connections Live, we can help you with that as well. So if you want more details for that, the email address is studio@businessconnectionslive.com, or you can contact us as well simply by giving us a call on 01784 256 777, and just ask for either Steve or Linda Bazant. I'll be Steve. Linda Bazant is the co-director of the business, and we can come and talk to you. Now, we have dealings with large multinational corporates as well, who we do a lot of internal communications for and projects for them like that. So if you want more advice on how to maximize the return that you can get from your mail shots using video, then have a word with us. Our guests this evening are Mike Hampson and Adam Crawford of Bishopsgate Financial. We'll have a quick gander at the website as well. If you want to find out more about the actual business as well, great website, very, very informative as well. Tells you a little bit about it, with a proven record in delivering business transformation in the banking sector. But it's not just the banking sector. It is multinational organisation, blue chip companies that they can actually resolve, and they can also help out when it comes to business transformation. You can find out more about the services, how they deliver them, the partners, the people who you would be dealing with. You can find out more about them by simply going to the website. And I think the thing that's always interesting are the success stories. Just have a quick gander at the clients that are here. So, you know, it is global UK bank, lots of banking, of course. Russian investment bank, that must have been quite interesting.
It was.
Yes, UK corporate bank, lots of banking organisations there, and also retail too. So if you want to find out more information, simply go to their website. It is www.bishopsgate-financial.com, and you'll find out more about Mike and what Adam actually do. We're getting close to the end. So let's just talk about some of those key techniques again, and then we're going to invite maybe both of you or one of you to do a little piece straight down the camera. The techniques that you have used when you've gone into these large multinationals, the Russian bank would have been quite interesting. Right. But when you go in there, are there core things that the pair of you will do initially, and core tools that you give to the people who engage you?
I think the main thing about our engagements is going in with a pretty clear objective for what the client either thinks their problem is or what they're trying to achieve, and it's that clarity of mission, if you like, in terms of before you even get started. After that, it really is about listening and gathering as much of the information and data that you can before you start to jump to conclusions and make assumptions. Very often the solutions that the client needs are somewhere in their own organisation. You know, someone knows that organisation well enough, and you've got to listen to that, uncover that, and then, as I say, help them build the story as to what the right solution or the right answer is for them.
And would that be good advice to both small and large organisations, because maybe the answer to your problem is within your own company?
Very often, yeah. It is about listening to people, listening to people at every level of your organisation. We're all individuals, we can all contribute, and if people don't feel that they're being listened to or being valued, then they'll start to shrink into their shell, and that's when they'll become negative, if you like, about an organisation. But you know, it is very unusual for an organisation to be either in a situation or to have a problem and to genuinely not know somewhere in that organisation how to unlock that and what the solution is.
What about
we also place great store on how we leave a client engagement, to make sure that we do leave against the objectives that we've been set when we started the engagement, and that we leave the client in a better position by having invested in their own people in terms of succession planning as we leave, so that the work, hopefully the good work that we've delivered, can then be continued by those who are permanent within that organisation. And that's something that we really hold very true to, and it's something that again resonates with our clients. We make a very clear distinction at the end of engagement that it's time for us to leave, and that we have done what you asked us to do, but also empowered or given the tools to your own people to continue to make the improvements that we have hopefully started for you.
Do you ever go back? It's a bit like The Apprentice or something, one of those programs where you go back 6 months later for a bit of a business checkup, effectively. Are you ever invited to do that, or is it very much a case of job done and walk away?
Well, I think it's when you've had a client or where you've got a client, the biggest mistake you can make is then to walk away and not stay completely in touch.
You've got the relationship there.
Exactly. I mean, it's the adage of sales. It's much easier to sell to an existing client than to go find a new client. So we constantly stay in touch with clients, whether we're working with them actively or not, and so therefore we're always aware as to how things have developed. And I'm pleased to say that our history to date is very much that our clients like the people we make available to them in the teams we put in available, and very often they're asking us, whilst we're still there, to come across and do something else in another part of the organisation, and that's really how the business will grow.
If we had to encapsulate the entire programme into a tweet, or maybe a short email perhaps, and we kind of, because we started off there, and the premise, an interesting premise too, how to fast track your business. If you could sum up the key, both of you, the key things that would allow any business to fast track their business, to move them from where they are today to where they need to be. Do you reckon you could do it? You'd have a bash.
I'll have a go.
You'd have a go, okay then, right.
I think the key things we've talked about are absolutely have a business plan that is constantly refreshed and everyone in the organisation is aware of and understands where you're trying to go, and to recognise key inflection points in a business growth. It's all very well starting something up, which is a lot of fun. I've done it several times with different organisations. But as you start to get bigger, you've got to recognise when it's time to let other people take more and more responsibility for what is going on in that organisation. So that lesson around delegation at the right time to the right people, absolutely crucial if you want to keep on growing.
Your turn now then. So the question is how to fast track your business, summed up in a nice short, concise sentence.
Bring the right people in, even if it feels as if you're compromising your existing structures or your finances. Bring them in early and invest in them, and then make sure they're properly led to deliver against what you're trying to achieve in the business plan that Mike's just highlighted.
Do you know, it's been absolutely fascinating. It was different from what I thought we were going to talk about, which is nice. I think it's been a real insight into corporate structure and the corporate problems, and I think a lot of businesses, regardless of their size, don't sometimes realise that everybody has similar problems. They're just a different scale in what they get. And I suppose the thing that's come through the most has been it's all about planning and understanding, and that proactive approach to making certain that you are moving forward and you're just not letting it happen around you, but you are influencing it happening around you. And I think that's been the biggest lesson that's come out this evening. As always, we ask, what we're going to nominate you tonight, Mike. We always ask our guests to deliver a piece about their business and about the key takeaways of what we've talked about over the last hour or so. So if you're ready to do that, you can just say who you are, what you do, and which camera? Camera one, straight down camera one. I'll just put the laptop down like that so we can see you. So straight down camera one, the airways are yours, but do say who you are and your business at the beginning of it, so take it away.
Okay, I'm Mike Hampson. I'm the CEO of Bishopsgate Financial Consulting, and we deliver transformation services to the finance sector in the UK and abroad. I think the key thing that we can do for our clients is that we can deliver change by bringing in experts who have been on the other side of the fence, people who have actually done the job within the sector themselves, not just trained consultants. And we have got a fantastic training program now for guys coming out of the military, where we're able to leverage the natural skills and talents that they bring, be it around communication, be it around leadership, be it around structured approach to things. And by training them in the financial sector, we're developing a fantastic source of talent, which we are starting now to deliver to our clients to help solve their problems.
Fantastic. Do you want to add anything to it, or do you think you said the lot?
I think he's said it very well.
Fantastic job, well done. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having the pair of you on the programme. Our guest on next week's programme is Paul Glynn of Sadler Training, West M25 in Brackers. He helps businesses, it says here, and professionals increase revenue through assessments, training, mentoring, and also coaching as well. So Paul's going to be joining us on the programme next week. That practically wraps up this edition of Business Connections Live. I hope you've enjoyed the programme. I hope you found it educational and informative as well. Don't forget the website. It is bishopsgate-financial.com. From all the team here at Business Connections Live, we'll do it all again next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Till then, bye for now. Bye-bye.